Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Soraya, and on behalf of MIGPA, I would like to welcome you to our virtual forum titled Women Who Count as we celebrate International Women's Day today. Thank you for your time in joining us and our wonderful panel of speakers for today's event. Before we commence, some quick housekeeping. Kindly ensure that your microphone is muted to avoid any distractions. We will be having a group photo towards the end of the session, and it will be great to see you all. So we hope you won't mind turning on your camera for a short while later if you are able to. If you have any questions at any point during the forum, please type them into the chat box. We will address them during the Q&A session at the end. We will be issuing e-certificates to participants who have completed the feedback form at the end of the forum. I will be sharing a QR code at the end of the forum for you to scan. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for the panel discussion who will be kicking off this session. Lisa Tan has close to 10 years of public accounting experience with Deloitte, Malaysia, and the United States. Her exposure in various industries, including investment management, consumer business, e-commerce, financial services, manufacturing, and hotels. Lisa graduated from the University of Queensland with a Bachelor of Commerce in Finance and Accounting. She is currently a member of MIGPA, CANS, and MIA. She is also chairperson of the Young MIPA Task Force and Young Regional Member 2022 of CANZ. Without further delay, I will now pass the session to our moderator. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Soraya. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the International Women's Day forum titled Women That Counts with our team today, Embrace Equity. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all panelists and participants joining us today. Today, we are celebrating a very special day, International Women's Day, and on today's forum, we will be covering a few interesting topics that relate to this year's theme, Embrace Equity. We are so privileged to have three strong, inspirational female accounting professionals to join our panel today. Let me first introduce them to you. Chin Shimei, CFO of Spark Systems Pty Limited. Shimei is the CFO of Spark Systems, a Series BB fintech company. She is responsible for overseeing financial and accounting processes, performance management, investor relations, and strategy. In addition to her role at Spark, she also serves as the treasurer of the Singapore FinTech Association since 2021 and was a member of the Women in FinTech subcommittee from 2019 to 2020. She was awarded the Top 50 FinTech Leaders Asia Award in 2019 and was appointed as a Singapore FinTech Festival Ambassador in 2022. Prior to Spark, Shimei was in audit and assurance at the Big Four accounting firms in Malaysia and Singapore. She is a member of MICPA, CANZ, and CIMA. Hafiza Sharif, CFO of Bank Simpanan Nasional. Hafiza is currently the CFO of Bank Simpanan Nasional. She has more than 10 years of experience in private equity investments and involved in leading finance function transformation and value creation activities of portfolio companies across various industries, in addition to financial and fund reporting. She is currently a member of MIGPA, a council member of MIA, and sits on the board of Gibraltar BSN, a life insurance company. Welcome, Hafiza. Next is Malini Sundaram, CFO of Novartis Japan. She has been CFO of Novartis Japan since March 2021. She joined Novartis in 2009 as head of finance for Asia Pacific South Africa Oncology in Singapore. Subsequently, she was appointed as country financial officer of Australia, New Zealand, and later returned to Singapore as CFO for Asia. Malini started her career in audit and advisory in Arthur Andersen, Ernst & Young before moving to UCB. working in different capacities in Malaysia and the US. She was also CFO Met Air Worldwide in Singapore. She is currently a member of MICPA and CANZ. Welcome our panelists, right? Okay, I think before we start our topic of the day, I would like our panelists to share with us your career journey, maybe starting from when you choose to take up accounting and the MICPA qualification. May I have Shimei to start first?
Yes. Hi everyone. So just a quick brief background about myself. I think Lisa has actually covered quite comprehensively. So I think, for me, I'm currently the CFO of Spark Systems, and Spark Systems is a fintech Series B startup company per se. And I've been in the fintech industry for the longest time, since fintech was at its infancy back in 2016 here in Singapore. And it's a long-standing journey for me in this industry. And I think what's interesting about my journey is that I started my career in the Big Four, which is audit and assurance for banking capital markets, which is a very structured, very corporate, very governance-centric environment into a startup. So I could say it's kind of like a leap of faith for me. The journey has been amazing. I actually enjoy being in a startup. It does have its day-to-day challenges, and being in, and that draws back to being an accounting finance graduate, right? Like how accounting and finance is so universal across different sectors, across different industries. And, it allows us to really venture into different industries, and it allows us to understand the business from a financial standpoint. So being in being with a MICPA member for a long time, I guess it provided me the technical skills, but obviously, as our career moves, the soft skills also come along the way. Different skill sets come along the way, but being in accounting, it does provide me that technical foundation to where I am today. And I think I can share more later as we go on with the panel questions.
Yeah, I totally can relate to you, because like my years of my 10 years here, every day, everything is evolving. I still remember the last time I took the case study with MICPA course. Yeah, that's actually quite a relevant skills for our things that we do every day today. Maybe can I get Hafiza to share your journey with us?
Yeah, Lisa, when you mentioned case study, Lisa, I think that was the only MICPA paper that I sat for once and I passed. The rest I have to set like 2 to 3 times before passing. But what I find it interesting, that case study, since you mentioned it, Lisa, is the one that actually made me realize the value of MICPA, because we are very used to a system of education that it's just one day before the exam you can still burn the midnight oil and pass the exam the next day, right? You just have to memorize everything and you go to the exam hall tomorrow and just write everything back. So that was how I approached MICPA for the first papers and all that. But only at the case study where something like a light bulb moment for me that actually taught me critical thinking and analytical skills. You are actually applying all the things that you learn into a business case study. And I think that just opened up my mind and sort of like set a foundation for me in my accounting journey. Because my accounting journey is really accidental. You could say I never planned to be an accountant. It was the only thing that could fit my SPM grades at that time. you just need a credit and English A1 and English and BM A1. Literally, I was a late bloomer, so it was the only thing that fits my SPM results. So, and when I went into accounting during my final year, everyone was busy applying for positions in Big Four. So it was like a FOMO moment for me. I don't want to miss out, so I also applied and ended up in PwC. And as they say, the rest is history, I suppose. But I have to give MICPA I always come back to MICPA as that change in life, especially that case study, Lisa. It just opened up my mind, and suddenly everything is clearer per se. So that's a nutshell of my accounting journey.
Okay, I really need to give you credits for saying that you passed this paper one time short and the rest you didn't, because I actually didn't pass my tax paper first time as well. And I seldom mention it to a lot of people. That's really
Tax, accounting, everything is always like you need 1 or 2 sittings. For me.
That's why I'm actually giving you a lot of credit for this. Can we have Malini to share us your journey? I think yours will be a lot interesting as well.
No, I mean, I don't want to repeat the career journey, but let me start from the beginning. I actually graduated with an accounting degree from University Putra Malaysia. Like everybody else, you are advised to join the Big Four. Somehow that narrative hasn't changed in I don't know how many years. So I joined the Big Four, and again, being a local graduate, that meant that the program that is sponsored is MICPA. And I have to say, I am very grateful to MICPA, and I recognize the value of it. As you can see, my career, I've moved around. And when I went to Australia, I was very grateful for the ability to do the conversion program to get CANZ qualification, which then exposes me to the, the network and the community in Australia when I was the CFO there. So for me, MICPA is actually really an amazing program. I've observed its evolution, and I do think that MICPA has actually moved with times. My time of sitting on it was very different, right? There's no syllabus, nothing. God help you, hopefully you pass. Okay, so to have seen its evolution to really become right now a program where, it's a dual program and you get straight away CANZ, I think it's really amazing, and actually credit to the MICPA organization, which is why even though I have been overseas for now a very long time, I've retained my MICPA membership.
Okay, good. I think we got a little bit more than those that I introduced you guys just now. I think let's move on to our topic of the day. I think today is a very important day. It's International Women's Day, and we have hearing a lot of discussions and topics on the air, on the FM, on the news, celebrating women and stories around women. And there has been also a lot of conversations surrounding gender equality. It's always there during our work stage, every time, every day. It's very important, but there's something missing as well. We need to recognize the importance of equity too. So I would like to ask our panelists here, what does gender equity means to you? Maybe, can we go with Malini first?
Thank you, Lisa. So it's very interesting. I think we are more used to the term equality, which means let's treat everybody fairly. But the concept of equality doesn't recognize where people come from, in the sense that it assumes everybody had the same starting line. Maybe one simple example I can give is, imagine a child who, one child who has the opportunity to do 2 years of preschool, 1 year of kindergarten. At standard 1, this kid probably is already reading at standard 3 level. Then you have the other child who had no means to have preschool, didn't go to kindergarten and start standard 1 at a very different level. So equity means is ensuring that both the kids are helped according to where they start from. So when we were to apply that from a gender perspective, is recognizing that in many cases, perhaps in many professions or even in industries, women may not be at the same starting line, might be already 1 kilometer behind or 500 meters behind. So we need to make sure that we can see what are the systemic obstacles that exist that makes them behind, or provide the additional resources to make sure that everybody gets to the same starting line. That's a bit of the way of how I keep the two different statements, right? So if we embrace equity, we will get to equal outcomes eventually.
I see. I think maybe I will drill a little bit further. Based on your experience, do you see that this gender equity it's something happening in your workplace, or you had personal experience on this? And at the point of time, what kind of supports or opportunities or resources did you think you need in terms of this?
I would say in different places, different times, different roles has been quite different. And also right now, me being in Japan, where gender is, it's certainly not at, it's certainly a very different perspective in Japan. You come to recognize that it's different things everywhere. On my journey personally, I would say that definitely that there have been people who step up to support, whether they ended up being sponsors in the sense that they encourage you differently, or in some cases, I've truly benefited from programs that actually help me, to gain certain skills, experiences, and etc. So it's not really one size fits all. You kind of need to see the situation, the company, the industry, and the country to sort of see what is it that we can do in the right way.
I see. Okay. Probably I'll come back to you on this in a while. Can we have Shimei? Like, how about you? What does gender equity means to you?
Yeah, okay. Similar to what Malini has mentioned, right? Like there is a stark distinction between what gender equality and what gender equity is. So like in terms of gender equality is about treating all genders equally, ensuring that everyone has the same rights, resources, opportunities, and it focuses a lot more on the outcome, regardless of the gender identity, whereas gender equity is about creating a fair and just society where all individuals, regardless of their gender identity, have equal opportunities. So it actually recognizes that the fact no one starts the same. Everyone comes from a very different background. Certain genders probably have been marginalized and disadvantaged in certain societies, and and it seeks to address such inequalities. In terms of my experience, I think like fortunately, like in Singapore, there are a lot of like it's pretty pro women per se. So far I haven't really experienced very disadvantaged or discrimination from where I am. But I guess being a minority always puts us at a difference, right? It makes us a little bit different from everyone else. So being in the tech industry, it's mainly male dominated. Also, like, as women climb up their career ladders, you see less women in leadership positions, and that is actually statistically proven. And really, like, it kind of like boils down back to how can we as society, right, like, give a platform for like women to have this access to opportunities, rights, and resources. And I was having a discussion during lunch earlier today, and there's this whole big topic about ESG, environment, social, and governance. And there's so much talks about environment, but not so much on the social aspect, right? So actually, ESG does try to tackle these social issues or social topics that we have out there. And really, like, it's not just about us as individuals, but also like how as companies can we give a platform to women or to people from diverse backgrounds, such opportunities and resources.
I totally agree with you. I was at also an international women events on Monday with quite a number of investment management people, and surprisingly, you will hear like from the founders, from the venture capitalists, they say about like they are actually encouraging a lot of female entrepreneurs now, given like, you know, at this time of time, they are looking towards investments that can actually scale and generate consistent return. And they realize that within their portfolios, those companies that actually set up by the female entrepreneurs had a very consistent kind of return. Because, you know, they say when you want to give a money, it's better you give to the women instead of give it to the male, because, you know, they will just spend money everywhere and probably had more bigger attitude in terms of taking risks. Do you actually see that in your industry, because you are coming from a fintech industry, very male dominated, and I know in past few years fintech actually got a lot of fundings. Like, do you see that there's a lot of disagreements in terms of making business decisions alongside with your other management? And, you know, can you tell us a lot more experience from this? Yeah.
Okay, so I think maybe sharing from management perspective. Yeah, so my founders are all male, but luckily I have a CEO who is also female and myself is female. So actually our management team is pretty diverse, and I guess it's good, you know, actually it's good to have diversity in the management team, in the leadership team. Why? Because I believe that people with different backgrounds and different experiences brings in a lot of perspective, brings in a lot of opportunities for debate. So, you know, we may be having, more strengths in certain areas and not so strong in certain areas. So it's really coming together and really trashing it out and solving complex problems together. And that's the whole idea of, you know, having diversity and really like, I think it's good. Like, I mean, sometimes obviously the reality is, you know, debates can get heated sometimes, you know, but I think what's most important is, as an individual ourselves, is really letting go of the biasness, or like the gender biasness, or any biasness that you may have. May not just be about gender, but could be about age or from someone's culture. It's really like opening your mind and allowing that person to share their perspective and really digesting and reflecting and see, does it really make sense? Or am I subconsciously having a self-biasness towards this person? It's really about our mindset as well. How can we, you know, become more empathetic, or how can we accept certain points people bring in, or like really understanding why are they coming from that certain perspective? What drives them to say certain things? So I think that is a very important point when it comes to dealing with people from very, very different backgrounds and different cultures and different genders.
Yeah, I relate to that. Okay. Next, can I get Hafiza? Why not you share your definition of gender equity?
I think it's pretty much the same with the other panelists. And when I hear gender equity, I remember an image that I saw a couple of years back in the internet. It was an image of two person, men and women, at the running track. So they are all at the starting line. towards the finishing line. They are trying to get to the finishing line, but the path for the men is clear. While the path of the women have there's some hurdles in front of her, and that hurdles is represented by laundry, by a cooking stove. I'm sure they throw in some kids in there as well. So to me, that is that comes to mind when I see gender equity, and it also comes back to a topic where I feel strongly about, which is mental load. I feel like women carry a lot of mental load with us. As I'm speaking here, I'm having texts from my girl asking me to buy her maths chart, graph, the graph paper for maths. And sometimes at the board meeting, I'm having texts to say, "Mommy, my aircon is broken." All these kind of things. While you are in the board, while you're presenting, you have 100 and other checklists running into your mind, and that load is real. And I think it's important, as part of Women's Day and embracing equity, it's important for us to talk about this, to create awareness about this mental load that is either conscious or unconscious. People will not appreciate this until they are the one that is carrying that mental load burden. So I try as much as possible as a leader to always remember this when I'm dealing with women, my women colleagues, women team members, because sometimes it's easy for male bosses to say, why are they not performing? They used to be a 5-rater, now they are now a 3-rater, but they fail to realize that this person has actually gave birth, and is coming back to work, managing a baby while still trying to find their footing as a working mom. So they do not appreciate this kind of things. It's not purposely, it's really unconscious to them. So I think it's important for us as women leaders to speak more about this kind of issues, so that we can actually support gender equity in the workplace in that way. So this is what I feel about this whole theme of embracing equity.
Yeah, I mean, thanks on touching this topic, because I was actually want to discuss, because I don't have a family with me, so I don't have much experience on this, but I do observe.
I'm sure you also be the one that is handling your parents' things. All these kind of things always comes to us women for some reason, arranging the hospital visits of your mom. I'm sure it's the same with all of us here, and people just take that for granted. To make the workplace equitable, you have to address all these really unconscious bias.
Yeah,
and I feel strongly about that. Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking, because I do observe, I have colleagues who actually really performing very well. Even my male colleagues, they are actually performing very well. But the moment when they have kids coming in, especially first kid, right? And when they are coming back from the workforce, you kind of see that they are kind of a little bit of juggling to find, like what you say, to find the fit in the career, in a position, like how they should navigate and balance between all these things.
Yes.
And at the same time, sparing themselves time for themselves. I think that, in my perspective, is actually very challenging. Like, in your experience, I mean, what kind of supports or resources you think that we as management or as corporate can do more to support these people? Yeah.
I mean, to me, sometimes you just need to give them time to find their footing, and just give them, encouragement, and just really acknowledge that they are performing the same or maybe better than some people without that kind of, commitments and all that. Just really assign some values to that as well. But really, you just need to give them time and support. I'm not sure if perhaps Malini or Shimi would have different views or some additional ideas, but to me, just give them time and support, and really acknowledge that they are also, trying their hard to actually find back that balance. After three months, they should be, on the way up already.
Yeah, I think I saw Malini was like smiling when you share about this. Maybe Malini, do you want to share with us some of your experience?
Yeah, not for me personally, but maybe I will talk about where I am sitting right now, Japan. Japan is, I don't know, 100 something on gender equality. Many developing countries are way above Japan. And it's the lowest on gender equality in all the developed markets. And here, truly to what Hafiza just shared, it's almost 100% on the women, everything with regards to family, kids. So already the workforce is skewed. And even though within my organization, we actually are above 30% with regards to women in management, but when you go up the pyramid, then at the more senior levels is much less. So for me, it's within normally, and especially in the multinational settings, it's actually quite a lot of things resides with the manager. Because the company itself has broad enough of a policy to cater to different people. So a lot of it is, I mean, with regards to me personally with team members, is really listening, right? So it is a very real thing here. So when people, those who do choose to return after, let's say, taking a year of maternity leave and etc., they tell me, I can only handle so much. Can be in the finance, but I don't want to partner the business. I only want to do stuff which is more finance to finance so that I don't have odd hours. Fine. That is the kind of arrangement I will try to find, right? Because there's so few women that we will, if you have the right kind of mindset, this is an example of removing obstacle or making something easier, right? If you want to keep the women in the workforce, we have to then ensure in this setting to make sure they can be successful for the X number of years. Then I have someone else who was then say, okay, now my kid is 6, 7 years old. Now I am ready. I'm happy to take a partnering role that is a bit more this thing. So I would say is really listen and fully acknowledge that everybody's situation is very, very different and just remove the obstacle, right? Remember that for everything that we do today, this person is X years old, this year in their career, they will stay in the workforce. And tomorrow, they can be one of the leaders and etc. So that's a bit of what I would say that, you know, we need more of that. So if you look at it, company policies are broad, but it's really in the end up to hiring managers. So I would also say then it's actually ensuring that all managers, right, both female and male, equipped, get exposure enough to understand that and appreciate this kind of diversity. And in order to ensure equal outcomes, eventually, you have to ensure equity, right? That means balancing it for the individuals. That's a bit of my perspective, giving from what I see today here in Japan.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean. Like maybe that's depending on culture and country, though. Like a lot of female will still think that a lot of things is actually their responsibility naturally that comes to them. And I think maybe that's probably one of the main reason why certain women that has family and they actually took a break from advancing their career and they choose to come back to the career at later point, and probably that's depending on the organization culture. And I mean, a good organization culture should also embrace this choice of life. And then because I think for a mom that is able to take care of kids and juggling between careers and kids, you know, they come back to the workforce when they choose to advance their career more, their management skill is probably the tip top, because you need to take care of too many things at the same time. You are actually a natural multitasker and so on. And then there's a lot of other advantage that we can look at it. Yeah. And my next question should be more about a global career. I think many aspirational young female accountants actually look forward to advance their career globally. And our panelists here, all you guys have a very good international experience. Like, would you mind to share with us your experience, like for example, have you encountered any inequality or were you treated differently when you move abroad or when you were in, other culture? Maybe I'll start with Malini first, since you're in Japan.
I would say that in terms of inequality, it's a little bit different, right? When you're moving internationally, and depends on the role that you move in, it really depends at the level you move in as to what you're experiencing. I would definitely say that a lot of things exist in many different situations. The way I look at things is to observe, listen, and recognize what is it that you are seeing that's happening, right? And then sometimes when you see something happen, you might choose to address that immediately as it happens. But other times, from a cultural standpoint, you will take the leader aside and then you sort of share, right? Maybe the approach could have been different because this sort of undermines, your female leaders and etc. So it really sort of depends. I would say being sensitive and observing and seeing who's not on the table, why are they not at the table, are the things that you kind of learn as you do this a couple of times, right? And then you strive to see what is the social norm, not social norm, and then you decide how do you give feedback as well if you observe something.
Yeah, I mean, you have moved from a lot, like between Australia, Singapore, Japan. I would say like mix of East, West culture. Do you find that does the MIGPA qualifications actually helps you to navigate through all these culture differences? Do you see actually like how do you actually how long does it take to fit into the culture? I mean, the way people work, and what kind of specific attributes you think one person should have, like when they move from one culture to another country, especially for work, and you are on a managerial position. I believe every culture that you have moved, the way the whole organization works and how the team reports to their management is different as well. Yeah, and how they wish they are being led also different. Yeah, maybe you can share with us a lot, some about this.
Yeah, so I think on the MIGPA side of it, like I shared, I went to Australia. It was great to convert and then join CANZ, right? So that gives me a bit of a different network and etc. So just maybe a couple of things in terms when moving around, right? I think number one is to have a very healthy level of curiosity. Curiosity to really observe what's happening and etc. And also be part of the organization, listen. I also strongly believe that mindset matters. If you generally have the mindset, you believe good intention in everybody, but what you're hearing might be because of something else, the way you approach things is very different. If you have a perspective, there's nothing you can ever, there's nothing that you cannot overcome, then it puts everything in a different sort of a context, right? So, and every day is a learning journey. I think if you also a little bit learn to be more forgiving on yourself, you find a lot of things you encounter, you don't feel that, nothing is too dramatic high or too dramatic low. Maybe that's a little bit from my perspective, but I'm sure Hafiza and Shimei as well has great, experiences to share as well.
Yes, I'm about to move to that as well. Maybe Hafiza, do you want to share with us how about your global experience?
I spent about 4 years in Hong Kong, and I find that it's really not much different because I think it's still Asian culture, right? So in terms of I also find them to be very inclusive. So pretty good experience personally. On the first day that I reported to work, I actually asked for a small prayer room. I told them it can be a storeroom, it can be an empty office room, and they actually did give me a pantry that was normally only used when they are hosting dinners or functions. It's a kitchen with a small pantry, so it was quite inclusive. And I think because it is still the same, it's still the same, you know, Hong Kong and Malaysia is not too far away. There's still that relationship. So it wasn't too, I did not experience any, you know, any discriminations or such. But I do echo Malini. You have to be curious and you have to be, you know, I'm an introvert by nature, and I think my main mistake when I was there is I did not put extra effort to actually, you know, make be the first one to start a relationship or friendship, because I think when you are abroad, that is something that you really have to put effort. You have to be the one that is breaking the ice first. And I think that was a learning point for me as well. And I really echo what Marini said. Just keep an open mind and be very resilient. You have to be resilient because you are in a foreign country, you know, with no family members, you are there. Yeah. So resilient is key. You have to be resilient, be open-minded. You will have off days, but you know, the next day you just have to move on.
Yeah, agree. Maybe Shimei, I know you moved between Malaysia and Singapore, but looking at the awards that you were nominated and awarded, right? I think the participants here would also very keen to get advice to you, you know, if they would want to achieve a kind of career like you, but they are not too sure where to start and, you know, how to survive along this journey, then could you give us some tips on this?
Okay, yeah, sure. Actually, yeah, I can really relate because like when I first you know, oh yeah, that's like the typical path for any accounting finance graduate. Go join Big Four, be an auditor. Yeah, work the long hours. So I just you know, just hop in and then just, you know, just kind of float around. But I think along the way, I've learned quite a number of things, and I think while having, you know, the right if you're lucky to find a good manager, good on you. But sometimes I mean, life is about who you meet, right? And, you know, what can you do or how can you navigate like on things that you can control as someone that's just started out? And I'm a strong believer in like meeting more people, expanding your network, not just in your company, in your firm, you know, not just between the different departments within a big organization, but also outside. And how do you do that? So there are plenty of networking events. I'm sure Mikpa will be organizing some soon. You know, so really go out and talk to people, learn from their experiences, hear what they say. And, you know, when I first started out networking, it was actually by chance, like because like when I was in PwC, I was actually tasked to help set up the fintech team on top of my audit and assurance portfolio. And like being an auditor, like I didn't know how to like, oh, I don't know how to do sales. Like, I don't know how to like, you know, talk to people randomly and hey, what's up? You know, like it's just so awkward for me. So like, you know, but you just gotta go. Like, you just have to just put yourself out there. Just like literally swim in the ocean. You will make mistakes along the way. You will say the wrong things along the way. You will embarrass yourselves, especially if it's like your first time doing something. But, you know, it's really about picking up the pieces, learning from it, and like what Malini and Hafiza has mentioned, really having that the right mindset and really be curious, because like the moment you have the right mindset and that willingness to learn and grow, right, it overcomes all your fears and it overcomes all your, you know, your doubts within yourself. And you know, one thing that I always ask myself, like, okay, let's say I embarrass myself and then I'm like, oh no, but just ask yourself this, okay, who's that last person that I talked to? And what was that embarrassing thing did that person say or do?
We can't remember.
You can't remember, right? Yeah, so it's the same thing. So we are our own harshest critics. So yeah, I think that is one of the key things that I've learned in this career.
Yeah, I think, you know, while you guys was sharing your experience, I have all the, you know, pictures coming back from my times in US when I was in US. I actually, that's like the time that I asked most of, what is this? How do you guys describe, you know, people describe terms differently in different countries. So I will have to describe a long time of things. I was like, hey, how do you guys, you know, describe these kind of things in your country? They will start explaining that there's a lot of exchange between culture. And I was really proud at myself at that time where I actually chose to embrace my culture. Like, although I'm like really, really a minority among a white team, right? They are all from, you know, their grandparents are all Italians and so on. So they only eat pasta. And because of me, they tried Korean BBQ and Vietnamese pho. So yeah, I think I was super proud of that. So I relate to Malini say, you know, you need to be curious, you need to observe, you know, you need to open to learn. And, you know, when Hafiza said you need to be resilient as well, I think this is all, and what she may say, networking is very important, you know, and not to be really scared of having those embarrassing moments. Like for myself, I was like, I was usually very forgiving on myself on this. I would just, you know, have a sense of humor and laugh at myself and also laugh at the other person. That I think nothing cannot be solved with ha ha ha. Like if you feel embarrassed and you just laugh at it. Yeah. So that's how I do, and I think yeah, and it's really, really creating all the, you know, good memories, you know, when we move around the countries in our global career. And I think yeah, I think we still have quite a bit of time. Can I get, like, you know, three of you to share with us your leadership style, how you lead others, and you know, what are the challenges being a female leader, and how did you actually overcome that? Maybe Hafiza, you can go first.
Okay, my leadership style.
Yeah.
I think my leadership style and challenges as a female leader actually is correlated, because my leadership style is quiet leadership. So I'm as I said, I am an introvert. So, but I feel that's my strength that I'm bringing to the table. So I'm quite calm and collected in any, you know, in any issues or crisis. So I think that's the values that I'm bringing to the table. But it does come to the challenge, because when you are in the room with majority male and they are all aggressive, and you know, they are maybe louder, so you tend to be not to say invisible, but you tend to be you know, at the background when you're in a room full of aggressive and more extrovert leaders. So, but how do I overcome that is by knowing my strength, because I know my values. I know I'm very logical, I'm very calm, and that I think helps put some diversity in the leadership.
Yeah, I agree. I think that relates to, you know, when my venture capitalist friends say, like, women is more that you know, a balance within management team is very important. You know, you can't have like everyone like very extrovert going after the goals, and no one is actually looking behind and, you know, be calm and logical and assess, you know, all the risks and probably put a stop to get people to think about like where they are now. Yeah. That I think you also mentioned that these are your unique strengths as a female leader contributed to your success, and this is what bring you here. I think that's another thing that I really appreciate is like you, instead of saying introvert is actually not a good thing, you actually think that this is actually something, a bonus point, your value. You know where is your value, and you know what is the value that you want to bring to the table. Yeah. Can I have Shima?
Sorry, I think a lot of people, they don't differentiate introvert and shy. They always say introvert is shy, but actually it's not shy. I don't have problems, articulating my thoughts. I have very strong views sometimes. I can raise my voice as well as the next man on the table, but it's just the different approach of things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're also very confident and know where you are. Right. Yeah. That's, I mean, through the conversation, I know. Can I have Shime to probably describe your leadership style?
Okay. I would say that my journey in, in my leadership style has been quite it's been quite a journey because like I think I've made quite a lot of mistakes along the way in really finding what works and what does not work. And I came with this conclusion. This is my personal conclusion. I feel that no one method works. And is having the ability to adapt to certain situations or to adapt to certain people help me navigate through my career and navigating through people and pushing points across. So I can give an example. So for example, how I lead or how I manage in a Big Four is very different from how I lead and how I manage in a startup fintech environment. Very different skill sets. I think like when I was in, because like, and it's also due to the fact that, one big corporate company has structure, it has a certain culture, whereas a different company has a different structure and different culture. So end of the day, like you have to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve, right? What do you want your people to achieve? And how do you guide them to the results that you want? And, maybe some people require a little bit more hand-holding. They require a bit more autonomy. So it's really having the ability to understand where they're at, like, which links back to the whole idea of equity, right? Today's team, like, everyone comes from very different backgrounds, and is how, as a leader, are you able to kind of bring out the best in people? Yeah. Like, how can you make them feel motivated that they will want to do their best for you in their capacity? Because you also have to understand that people have limitations, and you can always try to kind of push them over the edge, but you don't want them to, like, take that negatively and perform adversely to what you intended. So it's really a lot about trial and error. I'm not sure if that really kind of answers the question, but I think it's kind of like a moving leadership style. Like when I start to realize that, okay, this is not working now, then I'll try different methods or different ways to see what I can do to actually help my team achieve certain results. And also, like, how can I present myself in maybe like a board of directors meeting or maybe among the management team? What are the things that I can say to lead the conversation to what I intend to achieve? So it's so yeah.
Right. Like I don't want to say it's a stereotyping, But in generally, women are viewed as more soft-spoken, like water. We are described like we are like water. Do you think that this kind of attributes or characteristic is actually a winning point in, adapting to situation, embracing people from different background, having more empathy in leading people in the organization, and this could be some advantage that female leaders can actually embrace in their career?
I think, right, so that's a bit too much of a general statement to say that women is like that, because I'm not like that. So I'm actually very talkative and very loud and sometimes too noisy. So I think what really matters is knowing who you are and being really authentic and working around what you are, and don't work towards what you not are. Because I did try that method before, because when you're in a very corporate setting, it's like, okay, bankers, investment bankers, everyone's like very serious, and very, very straight, and I tried to venture into being that personality, and it actually hindered my growth, or hindered my way of moving forward, because I'm totally being someone that I'm not. So in the process of your professional growth, yes, you learn methods, you learn tactics, or you learn certain ways to deal with certain situations. But I think it's really very, very important not to lose yourself in the process, because once you lose yourself, it's against your own nature. And that actually prevents you from growing more. So I really am an advocate for authenticity, really knowing what drives you, knowing who you are, and knowing what works for you.
Yeah, I think embrace, being authentic is actually one of the key things that we need to address when it comes to embrace equity, because everyone is different. We need to acknowledge everyone's different. And that's why being authentic yourself and acknowledge that other people can be authentic of themselves is actually part of this equity. Okay, Malini, can you probably describe your leadership style a bit to us? Yeah.
Yeah, so to be quite fair, I would say I would echo everything that Shime and Hafisa just said. The only element I was going to add is, I think from a leadership style, I would say for me is generally about providing the direction and then looking at what kind of level of help people actually need, right? In some cases, that's all you need to do. In some other cases, is to actually handhold. And I just do have a personal philosophy that everybody grows. Everybody can grow, everybody grows. So it's about that point in moment when you are interacting with that individual, how can you have the maximum impact that helps them, right? In the end, we are moving around, circulating. The whole idea is that having that impact. And I think that's the most important thing. And a fundamental belief, everyone grows. And there's no one journey that is the perfect journey for anybody. It's really a diverse range of any career paths and whatever, right? Individual circumstances are different. So that's also a personal belief that I have.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think yes, it's a lot of circumstances actually unique in a lot of ways, and we probably don't have like one size fit all thing in all circumstances. Before I actually conclude the session, we are actually on point for the time as well. Can I have a piece of advice from each of you based on the depth of experience you have? And what would be the one advice that you could give to the next generation of female leaders, and probably at a point on, how we can also promote equity in the workplace? Maybe Shimei, do you want to go first?
My advice,
Mhm.
be fearless. Be fearless. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to fall and pick yourself up. Always reflect on and ask yourself, like, what could have I done better, or like having that real self-awareness, but also don't be afraid. Like I think like I came from a space when I first started out, I was really scared, in the sense that I don't know what to do or where to go. But actually, like, I'm assuming that most of the audiences here is students. So actually the best time to make mistakes is when you first come out to work, because that's when people are more forgiving.
Yeah, true. Okay. How about Hafiza? What kind of advice would you give to the audience?
Quite similar to Shimei. You have to realize that at different stage of your career, there will be different skills that you need to do, that you need to have. So if I were to say the first few years, 5-6 years where you're starting out, it's exactly what she may say: be fearless, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's the safest time for you to learn and make mistakes. It's that few years that you have starting out in your first job. Learn as much as you can, and then you will go up to the next level, where you are straddling between becoming the manager as well as actually reporting to someone else. So that would be a place where you have to learn balance between actually being doing your own work as well as monitoring others your team's work. So that's a different kind of set of skills that you need to actually equip yourself with. So, and then at the next level is where it's actually about realizing that no one is 100% ready for the next step up. I think I feel that as women, normally we want to make sure that we know everything, we know every single thing before we are ready to take up the next step. I think that's part of the reason why it's holding us back in our career. So you are never 100% ready. If you have the opportunity, just really step up to that next level. And finally, it's a continuous learning journey for everyone. Myself, I left PE investment and joined an industry where I have zero knowledge, zero industry knowledge, zero working experience in a bank, in the banking industry. So it's a challenge for me as well. It's a learning curve, a steep learning curve. So be open. So it's a never-ending learning journey for everyone.
Yeah. I'll give the last piece of advice to Palini.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say I fully echo everything what Shimei and Hafiza said. And I think I'll just add 2 other elements, right? At every stage of your career, maybe just 2 additional things to add. Think of what is the impact you want to have. Impact, right? People, business, whatever it is, right? Society. Number 2, don't forget to be kind to yourself. You can only go far if you are kind to yourself. Remember this example that all of you I know have been on a plane before. Before you put the oxygen mask on anyone else, you first put it on yourself. So remember to be kind to yourself in that sense that, we are always our harshest critic because we are in our own heads, right? So just remember that, right? Nothing is as bad as you seem it is. And probably nothing is as great as you think it is as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a really good discussions with 3 of you. I would like to summarize a bit like what we had discussed today. In terms of embracing equity, I think first of all of us, we really need to understand that each of us is actually unique at first place. We come from different culture, different family upbringing, different education, even the experience, like in terms of friends that we mix with from kindergarten to primary to secondary schools. Everyone is actually unique, And that is what forms us today. And like all the panelists here say, we really need to understand who we are, what are the values we have, really understand yourself, and that will actually help us to position ourselves in our career, where and what we want to achieve. And it also helps to define like the kind of leadership style that you would want, like for example, and also have the kind of understanding that everyone is different. So we will actually lead people differently, but with an ultimate goal to have a biggest impact to the organizations. And also really know what we want, always reflect, not be afraid to step up, to speak or to voice for yourself, embrace the difference, having a open mind, curiosity in your career and your life, and also be very forgiving to ourselves as well. I think that's a few important key takeaways. And I also would want to maybe like we have come very far in terms of gender equality, embrace equity kind of thing, and more female leaders actually we are being brought to the spotlight. I mean, having this kind of spotlight is to remind and actually encourage more females to actually pursue the career that they really want, pursue the life that they want, and also give them the courage to actually speak up for ourselves and for others. So I also hope this kind of message can be passed on to our next generation. Yeah, you know, when you step into your career, and always remember, you are different, you are authentic, and don't be afraid to pursue whatever you want to. And obviously, I need to do a little bit of marketing for MIGPA. So this program is actually very good. Like for myself, I actually took this MIGPA program, and I joined Big Four. And when I was posted to US, I coincidentally, luckily, actually I don't plan to take US CPA at first, but because I took MIGPA, and then you have this dual qualification, I got CNZ when I was in US. I was like, oh, I only need to take one paper to get US CPA, so why not? So I just took it. So now I have like 3 licenses across the whole globe. So I think that's actually kind of very lucky for me. Yeah. So I think now we will want to move on to Q&A. If you have any questions, you can just type it on chat. But in the meantime, I already have some questions from the RSVP form. Maybe I will read the questions, and maybe one of the panelists can help to answer. Okay, the first question is, do you face any challenges due to gender bias? And if yes, how you encounter with it? I think we briefly talked about this just now. Maybe Shimei, do you want to do a wrap up for this question for me?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Do you face any challenges due to gender bias? And if yes, how you encounter with it?
Gender biasness.
Mm.
I don't think there was a very distinct experience in terms like, oh, you're female, you can't do this, or like but maybe it can be in the sense that like you're hanging out with the big boys, and they subconsciously kind of like cast you aside, kind of situation, maybe potentially, like because you're just different, right? And I guess well, so to navigate through such challenges is really like putting yourself more into such situations. It sounds a bit like a paradox, but hear me out. Like, I think it works because like you get to trial and error and see like what works. What, you know, I think language is like a very powerful thing. The choice of words you use, how you say it, the tone of your voice, the way you bring out a point, is very important. And I think that is something that no one taught me. That is something that I kind of learned along the way. And really like it's about really finding that you know that eureka moment, that eureka point that brings your audience in closer to you. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think being authentic is very important. Like
Authentic, yes, and also like adaptative. Like I know it can be a bit like, oh, you know, like, oh, why do I need to change for someone, right? But you know, end of the day, like, what are you trying to achieve, right? You want to solve a problem, or like, so I always tell myself, you know, it's like, you know, what am I trying to achieve? And I just want to get the work done, right? I want to be able to carry out my role as CFO, or like I want to carry out my role in probably like implementing a certain policy that no one agrees, or implementing a governance structure that you know, that usually you know, operations or like people who are customer facing won't appreciate, right? So maybe it's not gender, maybe it's the role also, because like, you know, I think a lot of, I mean, for the students out there, like, you know, as you go into finance, you know, we are very control centric, and we will, you know, piss off people along the way. But that's us, right? That's us doing our job. We are the kind of like the gatekeepers for the company. That's what we are hired for. So don't forget what is your role in your company. Like, maybe they are reacting in a certain way because they don't like it. Maybe it's not you, right? Maybe like, you know, like why do I need an extra set of signatures, or why do you need an extra set of authorization matrix? Why? It's a waste of time. But to them, they don't appreciate it, but we do. So yeah, it's really like getting your point across, and really like you know, finding the right way to actually deliver, or the right way to really like, it's like negotiate, to negotiate and solve the problem.
Okay, thanks, Shimei. The next questions that we need to answer is how to boost self-confidence when sitting in board with far more experienced people. I think maybe Hafiza, you can answer from your experience sitting on the board as well.
I'm also looking for the same answer to that question still.
Yeah, but probably you can just share with us like your experience so far and how you actually navigate.
I think it's always in the mind. It's natural for you to feel inferior or to feel scared. But you just have to tell yourself that at the end of the day, everyone is also feeling that fear. For all you know, the board is also feeling that same fear when they are thinking about their peers, because they are probably also thinking, I have to look smart because I have a chairman here with me as well. So it's really just in the mind. But the simple things that will always work is just be prepared. I'm sure you are there because you are deserving of it. So there must be a reason that you are there. So believe in yourself. And just be prepared. And what's the worst that could happen, right? If they ask you something and you're not able to answer, just be very frank. Just say, I'll look back. I'll come back to you on that. That you must have always ways to answer certain things. But it's as I say, it's an ongoing learning journey. So even until now, I'm still also having that same inferiority, insecurity of, you feel inferior. It's quite normal. It's just how you deal with it, and try to overcome it as you go along through experience.
Yeah, thanks. I can relate that when I present, the outcome to the board.
Yeah.
Just like, until today, even if I'm doing presentation, I'm still
Yeah.
feeling like a bit of insecurity, a bit of, I think there's some adrenaline rush, which I think
Yeah.
is good, because if you don't have that kind of feeling, right, you probably won't take that presentation too seriously. Yeah, I mean, that's from my point of view. For the next questions, it will be, may I ask all the speaker to give advice to the younger them, the clueless version of themselves before they get to where they are now, and what is it that they want the younger them to do? I think previously, to close up, I asked you guys to give advice to the young generation. Maybe this one, probably we can just put it uh, zoom to the message that what kind of advice that you would want yourself, a younger version of self, to do, but you didn't, and the kind of advice that you want to send a message across to our audience here. Yeah. Each of you, maybe who wants to start first? She may. You make a noise, that's why.
Where's the first to go? My advice for myself.
Yeah,
for my
maybe
younger
some
self.
advice that you would want to give a younger version of yourself, but you didn't. I mean, at the point of time, you didn't do it, and you wish yourself, do it now.
Yeah, I have no regrets.
Uh,
I think stay positive. Always have that positive mindset, because I realize like when you are unhappy about something and then you continue being unhappy about it and keep on talking about it and keep complaining about it, you eventually become what you manifest. And if you're not happy about something, do something about it and just stop talking. Take action for yourself, right? Like, okay, so what, you're not happy with your manager, or like the way she does certain things, or the way he does certain things to you. Like, talking won't solve anything, right? So is, what can you do? What controllable actions can you do to solve it and work towards it? And yeah, actually also, so like an advice for my younger self, I would also think like, like what Malini said earlier, right? Like, be kind to yourself as well. That ties in quite strongly with me, because like I think I tend to be a bit of a self-critic, and I reflect a lot, maybe a bit too much. So be kind to yourself, like and stay positive, and do what's sustainable for you. Like don't like sprint and then just burn out. Like, really like pace yourself, because life is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Okay, thanks, Shimei. Malini, can I have you to give a piece of advice to the younger version of yourself?
Yeah, it's something I've shared before. It's something that I learned early in my career, but I don't think I implemented it early in my career, which is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether you need it personally or whether you need it professionally. I think early on in the career, and again, it comes back from probably all the backgrounds we've had, right? We've been taught to believe that you must demonstrate that you can do it, you can make it, and etc. And you always thought that, you can handle everything and anything. And honestly, it's actually not really possible. And somewhere in my, I think when I first moved out of the Big Four and I was working for UCB, I remember this thing that a marketeer always said that has stuck with me, which is, asking is free. What's the worst thing that can happen? Maybe it's a no, right? You don't ask, you don't know. So it's a bit tied into the concept of being kind to yourself, but also just asking for help when you need it. I think that will be something that I would, advise my younger self, that it's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Hafiza, how about you? What kind of advice you want to give a small version of Hafiza?
The younger version of me.
Yeah,
Okay.
the younger version.
One thing that I learned as I grow is to take control of your own journey, because sometimes I used to think that the work will speak for itself. So I'll just do the work. I'll just deliver good work, quality work. I meet all the targets. I, in fact, overachieve targets, but and I leave it there. And I to me, the work will speak for itself. But in actual fact, you actually have to take control of it. You have to market yourself in your own way. It is not, sometimes you feel that why should I be so vulgar? Why should I be that? People should see what I have achieved. But if you don't take control over it, if you don't tell people, they will not care, because in a working environment, everyone is not, I suppose, you have to take charge of your own career in a working environment, because your boss might not see it, might not realize it, might not even think about it. They might take things for granted. It actually happened to me personally, which is why I'm actually sharing. They actually took for granted that you are already at that that you are there, and they sort of like lose that value that you have. So it's up to you to actually tell them, look, this is what I've done, and this is what I think I deserve. Have that open conversation, because you have to tell them, you have to take charge of it. You cannot just assume that your boss will acknowledge you, your boss will give you a good raise, your boss will give you the rating that you deserve. It doesn't work that way, because to be fair, your boss is probably thinking about 100 other staff, right? And things might might go, they might miss it. So it's up to you to actually take charge of a career. So if it's something that I would remind myself, my younger self, it is that piece of advice. Just take charge of your own career. Don't let the work speak for itself. You actually have to advocate for yourself.
I do agree that in terms of promotion and bonus as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have our last question here. That's work-life balance between motherhood or family commitments and prioritizing career. Maybe I think the audience want to ask, like, how can we achieve work-life balance when you have family commitments, and how you could actually prioritizing career? Who wants to go first? Who can help to answer these questions?
There is no balance. In actual fact, there is no balance. It's just because balance means it's equilibrium, right? But it doesn't work that way. Something has to give. So you know yourself, you know what's your priorities. So there is no one answer that fits all. It's really up to the individual. But one trick that I learned is people tend to look at things 24/7 when in actual fact you have 365 days, right? So if you can't spend time with your kids during this particular time, make sure you make time when they're on leave or when things are not too busy. So it's really up to you. So don't just slice and dice that 24/7. You have 365 days to slice and dice and work it around. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other panelists would like to add on your views?
I think drawing healthy boundaries will help. Managing expectations, learning to communicate to either your team or your superior, and just finding the balance on what you prioritize in. So, but I mean, like, obviously, like, don't expect like, I only want to do like a certain number of hours and I expect a whole lot more. So it's really managing expectations. Like, okay, like, what do you want? What do you want out of life? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Like, I mean, fine. Okay, if you want to prioritize your family, yeah, go ahead. It's your life. It's what you want. Or if you want to prioritize that promotion, then yes, go for it. But like, yes, let's say you want to go for that promotion, but how do you do it? So talk to your superior and say like, look, this is something I want to do. What are the things that I do to achieve that? And then after that, reflect on what the expectations has been set, and then you can see like, okay, does my lifestyle, does my existing commitments work with such expectations? And I think it's really finding that middle ground. I think work-life balance is also a very subjective, right? So some people can say like cutting off at 5 is work-life balance. But for me, it's like, if I get to enjoy my passions, if I get to be with my family, that is work-life balance for me. So it's really like understanding what you need and what you want, and really communicating and seeing whether or not that can work out for you in the work setting.
Malini, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I'll just build on what's being said. Let me build on what, for example, what Hafiza said. It's not just 365 days in a year. Just think about it. If you're going to be on this earth for until 80 years old, when the time horizon is different, think about what gives you energy and what drains you. And in that context, right, it's your family, whether it is the older generation, the younger generation, your passions, what you like to learn, what you like to do. When you think about that horizon, then I think you can decide at different moments in your life what takes a priority. Because I think it's hard to achieve balance. No such thing as balance. It's more, what is it that you want?
True.
That's why I say, what gives you energy, what drains you? And if you think of your lifetime horizon, you say 80 years old, okay, there's
so much
when
more
you want to do something, when you want to learn something, when you want to go, whatever it is, it changes, right? That's a bit of what, it's not easy to do, but that sort of changes also your perspectives of your, whatever you're encountering at that moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally can relate when all of you share this, because I mean, I deal a lot with fresh grads, and a lot of times I was being asked a lot in terms of work-life balance. And I learned how to encounter these questions as well, because I was like, at first, the first thing I will actually ask, what is the definition of work-life balance to you? Then I can tell you what, like, when I pose these questions, none of them can actually answer me what is the definition of work-life balance to them. So I actually come to a conclusion and try to convince the other party, like, I came to a point that I realized people who tend to ask for advice on work-life balance, they are not too sure what they want in their life. They don't know what prioritizes them, and they is kind of lost, like what actually what do they really passionate about, all these kind of things. So they are more of like asking how I should be able to find the things that really spike up my energy, and these kind of things, instead of asking work-life balance. Because when I try to explain work-life balance, I would say, if you ask me 50-50 allocation, that means you need to work like 12 hours every day, from Monday to Sunday, because you define work and life, and then work will be 50% of your 24 hours, let's say. Then you would come to a conclusion that you didn't work enough on it at that point. So I have a lot of these kind of questions as well. So okay, I think we don't have any more questions from the chat. Before we end our session, I would like to express another thank you to our panelists once again for your candid sharing. We are truly honored to be able to learn from all of you, the role models in the business, as a female leaders as well. And we really appreciate all the tips, lessons, and advice given by all of you. Thank you, Shimei, Hafiza, and Malini, and have a great day. Stay safe, okay?
And thanks, Lisa, for moderating. It's not easy being a moderator, and you've done a really good job.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now pass the time back to Soraya, the MC for today. Soraya.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Indeed, I think it was a really insightful session. Thank you to all of you. I know it's a bit ahead of time, but can I just quickly request everyone to
Can go for golf and we can't, or I don't golf, you know, or they can go for a ciggy break, and because I don't smoke, and naturally they don't actually ask those unconscious kind of bias, and I'm sure it's very much more prominent in Japan. How do you deal with it?
Now, I have to say there's a big difference between entering at a leadership position, between then entering at a different level, right? So in this perspective, when you're entering at a leadership position, so automatically what comes is positional, I would say positional privilege, right? From that kind of a perspective, right? Because you're entering as the CFO, regardless, right? So from that perspective, I can't say that I necessarily feel it at my level, but I'm just observing the whole country and like, you know, you look at the female participation in the workforce, and the examples I just shared are all real life examples. I had a team member who desperately wants to have a second kid, and we were doing a program and etc. And what I noticed here is, for many women here, is either or.
I see.
And it's both personal expectations, societal expectation, and just to be clear, right? That they feel either they can give 100% to be in the workforce and etc., or this, right? So, and that's what I mean by how to ensure equity really differs. This is very different than when I was either in Malaysia, Singapore, or Australia, or the US, right? So this one is really listening. And one of the conversations we are having, and we recently had a kickoff, and I met a lot of the reps and etc. And this is where I've heard this the most among all the countries I've been in. How can I balance the question I always get is, how can I balance wanting a career with my housework, my family, and etc. In fact, I've seen surveys as well, which is 100% a mirror of what I hear. So that's when you kind of realize that to me, it's a bit like this, right? Society needs to evolve, right?
Yeah.
That one, we can't do anything. But what we can do is, what can we do as the organization? Being an MNC, where anyways, in the first place, we have very broad policies and etc. that is very supportive, is then what can we do to help? So that's where some of the things that we're going to institute is really creating a community of women. Another unique thing that I notice here that I've never been asked, maybe in all the other places I've been in when I move around, or even all the people I mentor, right, which is from different countries. Here, they really want to see the immediate next level. So let's say if you're a sales rep in the field, they really want to see, and let's say they are just become a mother or something and have got one young kid at home. They don't want to necessarily see the Japanese woman in the leadership team, even though she's married and kids. They feel that's very far. They want to see the next level. Let's say a block manager, an area sales district manager who has made it, you know, also having young kids and etc. So I can see they want to, it's representation, isn't it? It's like representation to see the role models. So how to do it here is actually very different, creating the community, making sure that, especially when we do give, again, sales organization is the biggest organization. So when we think very hard about promoting people and etc., is trying our best to ensure that we remove any bias from the system, right? When I first joined 2 years ago, there was this calculation of looking at 3 years performance. Then sorry for the woman who went off on maternity leave.
Yeah.
So,
they tend to like.
Yeah, so that's where you just realize that there's so much stuff. I mean, and there's only so much you can do. So you try to see what you can do. And sometimes it's just like having that impact on like maybe that one individual, like somebody returning back from maternity leave in the next couple of months. I told her, don't worry, just come back, right? We'll find the right job scope of what doesn't make you feel too, you know, stressed and, you know, etc. Right? So it's so different, very different from Southeast Asia. I personally feel that, well, there can be all kinds of biasness. I don't feel gender as much growing up,
Yeah, true, very true. Yeah.
And it's actually Southeast Asia, right? My same company, when I was my previous role, quite a number of our Southeast Asian leadership teams were 50% or beyond female leaders. In
Hmm.
fact, at one time we had in Thailand 100%. So we say diversity need to hire men.
It's the other
I
way,
mean,
yeah.
it's actually quite interesting. Even in Indonesia, our teams are like 40%, at leadership team level women. So I have to say, coming from all this kind of different background, it's eye-opening. It's one thing to hear about Japan from outside of Japan. It's eye-opening being here. makes you really think again. Similar
Yeah.
tactics don't work. Have to think again.
Amazing, yeah, amazing that, yeah, I was always thinking Japan is very, very male dominated and very patriarchal kind of
It
ways.
actually is actually. I have to say that I was just joking because, depending on which years you guys went to school, right? But I still remember having, we have art classes, right? Have to do all the slogans, right?
Mm.
One of it is Luki's policy.
Yeah.
And Luki's
Dasar
policy
pandang
was
ke
Japan.
timur. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Luki's policy was Japan. So for me, it's fascinating to be here. And then see all the different beautiful stuff, contradictions, and etc. Right?
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
No, you're welcome.
Right. Nice
Thank
meeting
you all
everyone.
very much. Nice
Yeah.
Thank
meeting
you
all
so
of you.
much, everyone. Take care. For
thank
those
you.
participants, before you leave, you can fill up this form. It's a feedback form for you to fill up in order for you to get the e-certificates. And yeah, thank you so much again for
you.
joining
Thanks.
us today. And well, we reached end of the day. And happy International Women's Day again to everybody here.
Yeah.
Stay safe, and we hope to see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa, Hafiza, Malini, and Shimei.
Yeah. Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.